Hi, and welcome here at the Myers Touch Talk. It's lovely to have you on board today. Just give me a second while I sort my little self out here with technology. Just making sure that we have everything set up that we want. Now, you would have noticed, if you're very astute, which I'm sure you are, we're just starting a couple of minutes early, and I'll let you know why that is in a second. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see me here. As you hopefully have noticed in the advertising material. We're live from KBIS in America, and it's lovely to have you. See some of the Somatic team walking around here in the exhibition. We spent the last 3 days here, and why I started just a few minutes early is I'm really delighted to have Mick Richarata, I've got that right the whole time, who's Somatic's corporate architect. So if you just want to come in and join me here for a second.
Yeah, it's fun over here.
I just wanted to take an opportunity. So Mick is responsible within Somatic for the design of all of their studios and for really leading the discussion and the whole philosophy around the way that Somatic design at a corporate level on a global basis. So I just thought I'd take this opportunity to grab him while I'm here and while he's here, because he's off in about an hour or so. Just to really have a quick conversation about some of the differences that he sees globally with regard to American and potentially even UK design, and then we'll get straight on to the presentation. So firstly, over to you, Mick. Just tell us a little bit about the differences between the UK and here.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So at Zmatic, because it's one brand that covers the entire globe, of course, it has to be flexible enough to be regional, to be able to work in all these different countries. And we don't really change anything about the product to come to the US as opposed to UK or Germany and so on. So it's up to us to take that as like a toolkit and adapt it to the tastes of our markets. But I think we know, for one thing, that American kitchens are usually quite a bit bigger than many of the kitchens we see when we're showing examples, especially the small European cities. Maybe a little different in England, perhaps, because I do see a lot of really nice big manor house projects when we look at social media, but we have really large kitchens here. So what happens is you have a lot of huge countertop space in our kitchens. And we're at an island right now, which is about the large size you can get, like, for a single island. So what happens is we often have like two big islands and just rows and rows and rows of cabinets. So it's up to us to be creative with that space. You can't just have blank cabinets. It doesn't. There's no excitement. So it will get creative that way.
Cool. Well, one of the things I've noticed while I've been here is the American market, I would say, is much more traditional than the English market is. And I think the European suppliers that we've seen here, there's a few around here at the moment, have a much more contemporary styling. Are you finding that's becoming a stronger theme in America, or is it hard to break into that sort of market?
There used to be probably about 10% of the American buyers were interested in modern, but that number has gone up a lot. It's probably more like 25% or more now. And you can really tell because the advertising you see in our shelter magazines and the projects are getting much more modern. Because I think it's like a pull through. I think the taste is like people are saying, hey, how about some more modern? So I think you can see it now. It's really shifting, and that number is going up, and classic is trending down.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, what are you finding particularly that Somatic is bringing to the market here in the US that is perhaps unique to what the American market has at the moment?
We don't have American manufacturers doing things like the metals that we have with Somatic. That makes us very unique. Especially like where we're standing, you can't see it where we're standing, but this rose gold island, which is underneath, which is white, and the gold bronze colors are very unique. So people don't see that too often with American kitchen makers. It's a big difference.
There's a few on the sample palettes over here on the wall that you can just catch on the left here. I can kind of see that on the side there. There's some of Somatic's color schemes here. So anyway, I really appreciate your few minutes to grab it.
Thanks so much. Yeah, awesome. Good to have you over.
As you said, you're always welcome in the UK to come and visit
us. I can't wait. I'm going to come.
Great. Well, thank you. So let's just get on with our talk. So I'll just come back now to the screen itself, and we can go fully live. Okay, so here we are. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the Myers Touch here. As I've already said, we're currently at what we call Voices of the Industry, which is the Kitchen and Bathroom International show, where both Helen and myself have been speaking. And we've loved it here. We've been incredibly welcomed. And the team here on the Somatic stand have hosted us really, really well. So we've been delighted to be able to be here. The NKBA, just if you want to know, is the National Kitchen and Bath Association, which is the made in industry here. So obviously, welcome to our normal design talk. The talk that we're talking about today is our flagship talk, which we're calling Creating Kitchens with Light, Space and Laughter. And this is our studio. If you don't know who the Mice Touch are, we're based in Winchester in Hampshire. And as we have a lovely kind of group of studios across the UK from a thematic point of view, we welcome many people into our studio based here. So this is us, and in our studio, not right now, we have the lovely Sophie, who's one of my senior designers, and we're delighted to have her on board. Now she's going to be working the chat tonight, so if you have any questions or any thoughts that come up during the conversation, please just chat to her, and hopefully she's chatting away. I can't see that, but Helena's monitoring things for me over there, so that's wonderful. Any problems with the sound, anything you can't hear, or anything going on, just feel absolutely free to make a comment here. So, effectively, who are the Maya Touch? I mean, who are we? And so, I just want to take a few minutes just saying a little bit about our story and how we evolved. From my history in the IT industry, I trained in design in that side. And nearly 20 years ago now, we started the Maya Touch originally as a design and build type company. And as we found ourselves evolving, we would do whole house renovations and designs. And we always were getting very disappointed at times with the quality of the kitchen design that we were finding when the client was working with suppliers. So we integrated that into our range and ended up really enjoying it, being very good at it. And decided to move our business, transitioned a few years ago now to being purely focused on the kitchen, living, and interior space, which is what we do. And as we started to do that, we suddenly found ourselves winning awards. We were delighted to have won Kitchen Showroom of the Year in 2017. And last year, just a few months ago now, we won Kitchen Retailer of the Year. And these are top UK awards. So we're delighted to have obviously received those and had the recognition from our peers. This is the inside of our studio here, our main display. If you're thinking about awards, this is the House Awards. Now, the House is House HUUZZ. If you don't know, it is an award system where you can just log onto their website and you look at hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of pictures now of projects that have been done all over the world. And you can see that we've had 6 years of Best of Service and Best of Design, which put us in the top 2% of companies worldwide that are actually on House itself. So we're delighted with that. Here is, so I say, we're a thematic retailer. Thematic is a high-end luxury German product, but we don't just do contemporary, which when people look at what we do, there is other alternatives. Here's a project that's just been in a national home and interiors magazine in the UK that we did, which was a classic kitchen style in frame, beautiful soft grey with many beautiful accents there. This is a project that we did outside Southampton that we're finalisting Kitchen Design of the Year with. Another style here we did for the TV and wine presenters at the time of Saturday Kitchen Live on BBC, Susie Barry, and we were delighted to have done that for them. Another project that we did, this was interestingly on the front page of a Home and Interiors magazine in the UK, and we were delighted to see this go organically all over the world. It ended up in Russia and Japan and all sorts of things, which just showed you how simple white kitchens still have a huge place to be. This is one of our most recent projects where we were delighted to be a finalist in Society of British and International Design, KBIS, and also the Designer Magazine Awards here in the UK, or there in the UK. This is a project also that we've just completed, talking about what I call the fusion space and the whole way that you can fuse contemporary and classic elements together to be able to create different style and different effects. So it's so lovely. I don't think it's just about being in the middle of a stand with everybody walking around, being part of the whole space. And so anyway, creating kitchens with light, space and laughter. What on earth is that all about? Well, let me just take you through what I'm going to talk about tonight. Light, space and laughter, is it actually about lux levels? Is it about square meters and space on the technical side? Or is it about the emotional side? Well, this is a conversation really about the whole aspect of creative and emotional design. So what do I mean by that? Have a look at this.
Now this is the house one. And look over here by the sofa. But
Right now, obviously, it's a bit sexist and a bit of fun and a bit tongue in cheek, but it just really talks about what I'm talking about and the aspects of emotionality and design, which is kind of where we started. And it's really interesting if you recognise this picture at all. It's a beautiful, crafted, hand-drawn painting by the famous Scottish architect Charles Rennie Mackintosh. And I was up a few years ago on an architectural tour, really, and I walked into one of his projects up there, and I just thought, gosh, there's something different about this space. And it impacted me emotionally, almost to the point I'd quite like to have just laid down on the floor and just kind of soaked up and try to work out what was going on inside this whole space. It's like a National Trust house, so there was a security guard in the corner, so I couldn't really do that. But it just got me thinking: is what is the limitation that design has? How far can design go to impact our lives and our community, and particularly in our situation, our homes? And it started me on this kind of journey of thought process. And over a period of maybe a few months of thinking this through, we ended up working with my wife in what we call the 4 levels of design engagement. And this is really how we think of projects are broken down into. So the very first level of design we call product. And this is the foundation stone, basically. And obviously here we have some beautiful materials. We have some fantastic woods, metals, stones, laminate, glassware, lighting, all a really important part. But they're all fundamentally products at the very bottom level. What you do is you take those products, which we can see here, and the beauty of them, and we craft them then into something that meets our lifestyle requirements. And that's how it lives in its setting, how it lives in the family home, and how you integrate the whole space together. And I think that's probably where most designers stop. But we think there's another level, which is what we now call community, which is really now expanding and stretching how far we take that aspect of design reaching outside of the building that we're in into different aspects. And I'll come on to more details about that in a moment. Now, the final level, I think, of design that we're talking about is called transcendence, which is what we call the feeling of design, which now starts to impact the human spirit and the human soul. One of the big, I think I would say, overused phrases is the kitchen is the heart of the home. And whilst we'd agree with that categorically, we do feel that it's one of these overused phrases and nobody quite knows what it means, although they know what it feels like when you get there. And how do you journey in that process to the kitchen part of a home is the biggest investment other than building the home itself. Where the budget is often placed. If you're doing kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms, even media rooms now, the kitchen is still the most costly part of a project. And therefore, when you're spending a significant amount of money relative to the size of your home and the budget you have for the whole of your home, how do you know that when you signed on the dotted line, you're going to get what you expect? And this is what we call transcendence, the feeling of design, creating the wow, which is incredibly personal and individual to each person. So those 4 levels, I want to break them down briefly and kind of what I mean about them just a little bit further. When someone's working at a product level, nothing wrong with that level. It's just all about the focus on the product itself and the way that it implements work. So this could be easily a buy-to-let type situation, utility room, direct like-for-like replacement where the design works, you're happy with it, and really it isn't a complicated process to change. It's very contractual. You go in, you have it laid out, you have it costed, you sign away, and then before you know it, you're there and you're done and you're sorted. So that's all kind of marvelous the way that works. And then you come on to this. So the relationship that you need is very necessary. It's the limited amount you need to do the transaction. If you're going to buy a newspaper in the morning from the shop, you don't have a long conversation with the person about buying the newspaper. You want to enjoy the whole thing and just get on with it. So it's a little bit like that when you're doing this. So therefore, it's often just a planning process or quoting process, we even call that. It's a mind engaged situation, not a really emotional experience. and it's generally very cost orientated. I want the cheapest price I can get to have what I want to do. Lifestyle here is different. It's beginning to escalate and step up a level where we start to say, okay, we're beginning now to focus on how we're living within the space, the environment that we're beginning to enjoy. We're beginning to now ask a lot more questions and beginning to think about how to explore deeper thought processes. We're asking more about how the kitchen is working, its functionality, the whole aspects of form and function, and how they're working together and how they're blended together. We're talking a lot more about the relationships that are taking place in the home and how it's beginning to impact on that, and how we can deal with some of the problems where people are separated in different parts of the space. And we're trying to create these environments that can draw people to it instinctively and organically. It's still, I would say, contractual. It's value orientated, which I think is people will spend a little bit more money, but only if they can really see the value of it and the purpose behind it. So, for example, the great idea would be a boiling hot water tap, something like a cooker. You can buy a normal tap for maybe a few £100, but if you're going to buy a boiling hot water tap, you're £1,000 plus. So, but there's a clear benefit to people, but obviously it is a value decision that the client will make. Also here, it's a limited time investment. It's still, even in that process, not a huge amount of time necessarily involved to be able to do that. Now, this is where I think when we're coming into community, where we start to have a very different scenario and situation taking place. This is where I begin to say the heart of the home starts to really take place. We begin to explore these areas. We quite like, as I said earlier, the heart of the home, but we like to flip it and take it and now call it the home of the heart, which now just starts to define a slightly different approach to it, where we're saying, okay, how do I get my heart into that place? How do I get my soul impacted by the environment that I'm creating? And with every individual person, it is incredibly unique what impacts the human soul. So as we start to create the use of materials and feelings, we're beginning to think about connecting visually with the outside, trying to connect materials, trying to connect feelings, trying to connect functions. A lot of people are putting in glazing because we always feel the nicest outside. It's more space. When the weather's nice, we want to be outside, we want to be trapped indoors. So trying to connect with the outside is really, really key. But also bringing those elements inside, and we'll talk about that a little bit in some of the projects that we talk about later. The other aspect where it's really key for us is the whole thing of connecting with the values from a designer point of view. And I think you can see this quite simply, where the difference is what I call between a kitchen designer and a kitchen planner. A kitchen planner is asking you to design your kitchen for you, for yourself, and they're really just quoting and placing it down on paper, maybe using a few of their experiences to guide you from making kind of mistakes, but they're really planning the kitchen, not designing it. A designer is very different because they are exploring at a much deeper level, and as much as the client is able to reveal of how they feel, how they, the emotional side of how they're feeling, what they're sensing, what they're happy with, what they're happy with, it really does affect the quality of the design. So you have to be aligned, and you have to be able to connect with your designer. If you're not connecting, it's unlikely to get the best outcome at the end of the day. So contract is in place, but rarely referred to. The job of this situation is you're connecting with a designer. Designer is becoming your friend, and you don't let your friends down. So that's the sort of relationship you start to build. So therefore, you are talking about not having a situation where how can I say, where a breakdown in relationship happens because you're working for friends and you want to keep that in place. Still value orientated, I would say, but there is the possibility of being able to spend more money if one wants to. And again, the whole aspect of how it's delivered, the effectiveness of it is really, really important to maintain that friendship and relationship. I think as you start to move to what we call the wow factor effect of the space and investment, what does that begin to mean? And I think it's kind of, for me, it's one step above the whole aspect of the kitchen is the heart of the home. It starts to just go a little bit more thing where we're now walking in and we're saying, okay, what is wow about it? Well, there could be the wow of a bright red kitchen, which is going, oh, that's not the sort of wow I'm talking about. The sort of wow when you walk in is there is something about that space which touches the human spirit. And an example of that might be, very simply, is where you go into a beautiful landscape with lakes and rivers or trees, and you're thinking, gosh, there's some awe and wonder about the space. Even we're in Winchester, as you know, they have a beautiful cathedral there. You walk in there and you just look up, and gosh, it's one of those buildings that just goes, wow, that's amazing. And you can see that sort of situation happening quite a lot. And that really begins to change the way you think about it. It's now creating environments, materials, flow, light, shadows, and all these type of effects that start to create this space that when you walk into it goes, wow. The designer in this scenario is what I call a trusted advisor. They've almost gone past that friendship zone, and it's gone a little bit deeper. Is that the engagement that one has with that is that you become that trusted advisor with that person, which means that whenever that person, as a client, wants to buy another kitchen, they don't go anywhere else. They just come back to you because you get them and they get you. And I think that's really key and really important as we look at that. It really isn't about money anymore. Not that money isn't a framework to work with, and budget's obviously an important part of working with, but it's about investment for something much larger, something much bigger, something more powerful at the end of the day. Project delivery, which is what I call, you still have to be laughing at the end. If any of you have ever done building works before in the past or had any sort of situation with tradesmen and contractors and all that sort of stuff, oh my word, it can be sometimes very difficult to be laughing at the end. And we've had moments when clients have burst into tears, we have to throw their arms around about the whole frustrating situation. We've got other people that we've had amazing times with, and even though it's been a difficult journey sometimes, we still have that ability to laugh at the end of the day, and we actually got there, which is wonderful. So these are the 4 levels that we're talking about with regard to approaching the whole design process: product, lifestyle, community, and transcendence. And I was in the Design Museum a few years ago, and I picked up this statement: as many people share the belief that there is a moral or ethical component to design, and that design can be responsible for enriching our lives. And I think this is what we at the Myers Touch are really wanting to help our clients to achieve. I've looked at thinking about how far can design go and how much can it impact lives. And I'm a bit of a kind of a start at the extreme and kind of work back to find out where the limit is. And I thought, well, can't we design a kitchen that can save a marriage? Or, that's probably pushing it. But I do think we can create environments that can support family life, that can support relationships, that can support marriages, that can create communication, that can create these centres that where families are coming together, working together. And if we can begin to see as design like that, there is a real value that it really enriches, enables, and supports our lives and our family lives. Which is a great project that we were invited to attend. It's what I call a transcendent brief, which is very, very unusual to get a transcendent brief from a client. But it does happen, and this couple had sadly lost a close family member and couldn't stay in their existing home any longer, and they commissioned a new house to be built by an architect in Winchester. And the brief to the architect was, we want you to create a house of peace. Now this is a beautiful house. It may or may not be your style, but that's okay because it's not for you. It was for them, and it was absolutely a peaceful environment for them. So when we were commissioned to do the kitchen part of the project, we were delighted to work really closely with the architects to ensure that the colours, the schemes, the styles were in line in what they're wanting to do. And if you look in the middle courtyard there, this is like a kind of a big box at the bottom with 4 shoe boxes sat on the top, so it's an upside down house. And these 4 shoe boxes interconnect, and when it interconnects, it breaks through in a different material. You can see the wood break through from the box at the front of the house into the white area there. But it creates this outdoor courtyard, and if you see in there, there's a little olive tree, and olive is the international symbol for peace. So that was delightful to have that in there. You can see again the box pushing through on the other side. Now this may not be your personal style, but for them, they absolutely loved it, and it really pulled them into that place. So you say, well, that's really interesting, Keith. It's lovely to hear that, what you're saying to me here. But what does that mean with regard to my project, and how do I start this process? What do you mean by transcendence and community, lifestyle, and project? Well, this is how we approach. It's the first thing really when we in our design consultations is we wanted to ask clients at these sort of stages. And this is why we charge for the design process, because we spend a lot of time in this process, and the value to you as a client in making sure that when you invest whatever it is you have chosen to invest in your project, you get a fantastic outcome. So this whole process, the first question I'm asking is, how do you want to feel in the space? And the first thing we're talking about when we are talking about feeling is the emotionality and the spirituality of the space that you're creating. When I'm talking about spirituality, I'm not talking about spirituality in the religious sense, but more in the sense of a space that um, there's a sense going on within it. It's a good feeling. It's a feeling that is enabling the human spirit I was talking about. And we've all walked into environments where we said, "Oh, I don't know about this space. There's something about this space that doesn't feel right." Well, that is, in a sense, that kind of feeling aspect of design, and that is what is really important to work at. Some of our clients will say that, well, we're not a hugely emotional couple, or we're, whatever, there's no professions really that's unemotional profession, I suppose, and maybe even undertakers are happy people. But they're just saying, and I said, well, actually, if you're on a special date out, and we've got Valentine's Day just around the corner, and you're walking down a high street in a city you don't know, looking for a restaurant, you're trying to find a place that has a feeling in it that you want to create. So you walk past McDonald's because that doesn't create the right feeling for you in that space. But you're looking for a romantic place with a lovely menu. You can walk in there and you can feel an intimate space. And that is actually the feeling, the emotionality and the spirituality that design can have and design can impact you through. The next one, impact, great segue there, was who do you want to impact and how do you want to impact that space? And for us, it's talking now about the social impact. Now, for some people, they are wanting to extend their space out quite significantly to larger areas, and they're wanting to. So I've just popped the window back up because I just noticed it hadn't materialised. So here I am. I've just suddenly realised you haven't seen me for the last knows how long. But it's how we want to use our home and how we want to impact that socially, in the sense of reaching out into the community, and how we want to open our home up to that. Now, for some people, they don't want to do that. They want to stay private. They want to stay in their space, and that's absolutely fine. But we had a client up in Weybridge some years ago now, who had a church group of around 30 people come for supper every week, and they had 30 people in the house and the kitchen living space, and we needed to make sure they facilitated that, in a sense, mass gathering, and the flip side of having a family of, I think it's about five of them, and we had to create an environment that also felt intimate during that space as well. So that's what I'm talking about, kind of reaching out. The other aspect is what I call the environmental impact, and that is this whole kind of thing of moving into arenas like biophilia and green planting within homes, the use of organic materials, much more about lifestyle and wellness and those sorts of things within the home. Sometimes it's linking materials from the outside into the inside to make one cohesive space. Then your kitchen feels much bigger because your whole living space runs out into the outside. This can even touch things like lighting, and how that affects it as well. So as you start to bring these elements together, the whole feeling of the space, and who you're trying to create, who you're trying to impact, and how the environment around you is impacting you, becomes a real cornerstone of the success of a kitchen project. So, just trying to get the next level. Here we go. So the next question is, well, how do you want to live? Now, this really starts to move into the two areas of what I talk about, practically and relationally. So practically, this is really where things are going to go, and what is the flow, what is the space, what is the sense. Now, I've had design consultations for 2 or 3 hours with clients, and it's taken us an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to this question, because we've spent all of our time so far in talking about the way they want to live, the way they want to feel in the space, who they want to impact, and how it's going. And we're bouncing all these ideas around, and thoughts and feelings and experiences, and that just gives us such a rich and fruitful foundation to draw from when we start to come into this area now, when we're asking people about the way they want to live. And when you come to practical, everything has to be practical. One of the real challenges of good design is it's not easy, and the reason it's not easy, and I see what simple design is, easy design is, It's very easy if
Excuse
you want
me,
to.
I'm
No,
so
you carry
sorry.
on.
I
That's
didn't
fine.
mean to.
That's fine. It's lovely to be in a live environment like this. That's okay. And so basically, when you're talking about this whole practical thing, it's very easy to design a kitchen practically and have everything laid out sequentially, all in the same place, and get it to do that thing. It's also quite easy to create something which is quite impactful and quite glamorous and looks amazing. But actually, it's very difficult to put those two together, to have something that looks stunning and looks amazing, but also everything is all in the right place, the connectivity, the flow, everything all just works. And we've had many situations of clients that have spent sometimes a lot of money in previous projects and it just hasn't worked for them. Their whole idea and thought process well, looked amazing. They just went for the look and they didn't realize it just things weren't right for them and things were in the wrong place. The other aspect of this is the relational side. It's now much more considered about how we create these environments that instinctively, naturally create these environments that draw people to it for connectivity and relationship. I don't know, when our kids were growing up, we went and bought them these lovely kind of beds, bunk beds with a little desk down below and a seating area that came out to a bed. And we thought that'd be fantastic because they can sit and do their homework and that'd be great. But actually, that never ever happened. They were always doing their homework with us, either on the dining room table, in the lounge. One of my kids was doing his homework laying up the stairs once, which I thought was a bit of a laugh, but at least he was doing his homework because that was never an easy thing for him. Um, and this is what I'm talking about here, is that you want to create places that feel right and naturally draw people to it without thinking about it, particularly when you're talking about kids, but also for husband and wife and the relationships that exist within the home and within the kind of wider extended family side is how you create this space that people are feeling comfortable, are feeling at home and love to be there in a natural way without thinking about it. The last thing that we ask is, well, what quality do you want? Now, quality fundamentally is all about budget because you can spend, if you wanted to, £50 on a kitchen cabinet, maybe £500 or possibly even £5,000 on a kitchen cabinet, which effectively has the same physical storage capacity and kind of performs the same task. So this is why good design is never about budget, but it does inform some of the choices that one makes when it comes to quality. So the whole aspect of the materiality of a kitchen design, this kitchen here, you can see the worktop. So let's see this over here. This is a beautiful 6mm thick ceramic worktop, and ceramic actually is beautiful, incredibly functional, but it's quite a premium product. And this little kind of kitchen worktop could easily cost £5,000, I would have thought. Where if you could do it in laminate for maybe just £500. So this is what I'm talking about. And the other aspect of quality is the professionalism around the whole engagement process, things on time, on budget, and the whole kind of connectivity and relationship that we have with our clients at the end of the day. Really important part of the professionalism. And as I said earlier, being in the construction industry at times is not easy, and it's not always that easy to do that well. So just coming onto the place here, which I wanted to grab this kind of quote, which was which I grabbed off the Maggie's Centre website. The Maggie's Centre is a hospice. So obviously Trudy here had a life limited illness, and this is quite an old quote now, so I'm assuming she's not around anymore, which obviously is sad. But this thing, I just felt the building envelop me in love. It's bright, it's light, and the first thing you do is smile. So this is a real success statement for architecture and design that has impacted the human spirit in such a difficult situation I'm sure she was facing during this time, to have this sort of comment. And this is what I'm describing of the impact that design can have, not only in public spaces like this, but also in our own private spaces that we create things. We did lovely work for Mr. Wallace, General Wallace, a few years ago, and he gave us this quote, which we really loved, because he really trusted us. And this was a few years ago when we were experimenting, I would say, with some of our thoughts around this whole process. And he said, our new and much larger in kitchen, designed by Keith and Helena, that's my wife, is the source of all harmony in a 4-generational household. It fosters communication and interaction. It also has generated desire by all the family members to take time to create exceptional food in an inspiring setting. It has literally transformed the way we live. And that to us is a great success. What we've done is we've been able to take a client from this whole space of coming to us saying, we need a new kitchen, which is a product question. great question to start with, but not where to start your design process when you go up to the top. And we actually moved his kitchen within his house to a different part of his house. Quite a financial commit for him to do that because of moving services and things. But his response to us at the end was just fantastic. So this is the 4 levels of design engagement that we were talking about right at the very beginning. And if you're astute and you're just thinking about, well, there is a theme to this. And let me just tell you, if you look at this the whole way through, this is actually describing a foundation of what I would say wellness is all about. So wellness, I'm just going to take you down to what I say now, wellness is meaning. So at product level, it's great kitchens and wellness-related health equipment that can be used in the whole design process. So here at the show, they have a great company called Natusi that actually has created a fridge unit, the size of a kind of a standard hot point type fridge that freestands in a room, but it grows plants inside that, so you can have fresh lettuce, tomatoes, herbs, and spices, and it just there's all day, every day, chunking it out. It's a hydroponic type fridge, amazing unit for wellness, and there's lots of these sorts of products that are coming into the market now. From filtering air, and we've seen that a lot more around the COVID sort of side of things, where people are wanting to filter air within their home a lot more because of these sorts of situations. We're also seeing things coming in the sense of lifestyle, which is about how we're living in the context of relationships. Wellness is actually about this said about the products around you, but it's also about the relationships that you have with people, a good emotional connections with your family, good emotional connections with friends is a real important part of our own personal support of our own soul and our inner framework and the support of things. The community aspect now is saying, well, we're reaching out. Wellness is actually reaching out into the community, supporting community, loved ones, more distant friends, maybe doing some social enterprise type things or working for a charity, those sorts of things. And then the last type of wellness is really the spiritual and emotional dimension, where we're touching the other within the whole conversation of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to explore this whole aspect of wellness as a part of a project. So that's kind of the kind of overview, but that's not where we start. This is where we start with kitchen projects with clients, and this is an example of a project we often how we start projects on a black and white drawing with a few lines, and trying to interpret that into a transcendent space is a journey and quite powerful at times. This is the kitchen project that we actually completed for the client, and we redesigned the building a bit to reconfigure the architecture, because what we had discovered in the process was that the architecture wasn't quite right, and we actually ended up working with the architect just to tune it a little bit to make sure that the architecture was right to frame the type of kitchen that the client was wanting. As you can see here, this is all a Walker Sub-Zero kitchen, so this is quite a high-end kitchen from a cost point of view. And we had some custom seating at the end here as we helped the client evolve through the process of design all the way through. Just in here, you can see the pocket door system hiding a pantry, which is where all the dog food was. This here is another example. This is what I call a standard 1980s builder kitchen, which I must say is not very inspiring. But the brief for this, sorry, I forgot about the brief for the last one, was a product brief actually, but we moved him from a product question where he said, like, I need a kitchen, this is the layout the architect's given me, and can we do it? So that's what we did, is going back to this one, we actually changed the way it has, because we moved them up the levels to be able to do that. Now this kitchen was different because the brief we had from the client here was this. This was the view from his kitchen window. If you know it, it's the Spinnaker Tower based at Portsmouth Harbour, which was there to celebrate the turning of the millennium in the year 2000, although it, as ever, was delivered a bit late, which is not unusual. But he was a very nautical man, and he said to me, look, this is the view out my window, and actually I'd like a boat in my kitchen. So we actually designed him this boat island in his kitchen. Now, if you're nautical at all, you'll see the shape of that breakfast bar is shaped like a spinnaker sail, which linked beautifully to the Spinnaker Tower outside. And we just brought the little metal rods through to be able to have some link to the metallic forms that were outside the window. It was a delight to work with this couple. and we ended up doing their second home on the Isle of Wight, and we only finished that in the summer just gone. So that was probably a couple of years after this. This was a test project for us. This is a very unique space. We were delighted to be a finalist as well for Kitchen Design of the Year in this particular project. I love some of the close-up shots because it just starts to talk about the intricacy and detail of trying to get everything to be in the right place and to form the correct effects. But this is more like the day-to-day stuff we do. This is a project we worked with an architect in Winchester called AR Design, and a typical extension on a contemporary project. But when you look at this kitchen, although it's actually fairly simple and straightforward, I wanted to bring this one into the conversation today because what this is here is our #1 saved pictures on House. So if you ever go onto House, which I mentioned right at the very beginning, HOUZZ, you can create an ideas book and you save your pictures into that idea book. It's a little bit like Pinterest, but it's just purely for home living spaces. Now this is flips between #1 and #2 of our house pictures, but just to show you one of our most saved pictures ever on this thing, and just goes to explain what people are enjoying and liking with regard to their architecture and design. This is a little bit more out of the box. This was a project we worked on that was up for Grand Design's House of the Year called the Black House in Kent. One of my favourite projects. If you look, it's a 17-metre cantilever on the left-hand side under here. So that completely hangs out over the side. So when you actually are in the kitchen and you jump up and down, there's a slight flex in the building, which is, I think, a bit of fun. But this was a challenging project for us because the client was a structural engineer, had run a practice for a number of years, so hence the big cantilever. We had to have that in his building. And his wife was a design director for Jasper Conrad, so it was a very, very precise design project. So what we have here is what I'm really talking about, linking the outside into the inside. You can see effectively what the orchard on the right-hand side there, and how the kitchen is sat on the left-hand side. One of the lovely things about this project is the glass behind the Arga. What that has that effect of doing, you can just kind of see, it's reflecting the outside. So when you're standing on the dining room table looking at that, you actually see all the foliage and greenery behind you in that space. We're coming in here because of the angle of the picture, it's reflecting the outside. It gives the whole effect of another area of greening within the building, which actually is closed off because you have a utility room and pantry area behind that. So it's kind of a dead wall, but it's bringing life and space back into it. And this is a really powerful representation of how we've been able to reach outside and pull the inside back into the building. Here's a great example of biophilia, which is direct planting into a space here. We're beginning to see this happen a lot more, not necessarily in this situation with things like herbs and spices. So we've tried that in the studio, but the studio is just too hot and nobody really looks after plants and they die quite quickly. So we ended up putting cacti in there. And the purpose of cacti then is they don't die very easily and we'd have to water them too much or look after them. But here's a great thing where you've brought that planting in now. It softens the whole field, softens the kitchen, softens the space down, and you end up with a beautiful environment. A lovely split level here. I quite like working with split level as we come over to do those sorts of things. This is another example. We did a project in Ascot. It was a £4.5 million house for a developer. So it's a fairly healthy budget for the kitchen. But this is where kitchens start for most of us, because this is a visualization of what we're trying to represent. So a client can have a feel of that. So that's kind of the before. This is the home that we built. It's quite a substantial, quite a high spec kitchen throughout. And this is the kitchen that these are finished shots of the kitchen. Very, very sunny day, so it's very bright and very light and very white. But here we've mixed the new and the old together. The old, more classic style with the shaker at the back here, and you can see that frame all the way up to the ceiling. And on the left-hand side, we have this really dark, highly polished, glossy, piano finished walnut door, which looks amazing. Working with the developer here, we actually re-architected the building, redid some things on the coving, built all the stud work out, and also created that centre drop. You can see where it goes up into the ceiling, which is represented over the island. What that has the effect of doing is creating a lift in the space, and that little lift creates a feel of transcendence, that higher level, that higher space. So when you think about going into a cathedral or just that the churches, they lift up to give that sense of transcendence, and that's exactly what we're doing here, but obviously in a domestic home, which has a very different feel to it. But originally there was, where that breakfast area is, that table by the window, there was a step down in the ceiling, and where we are standing now for this photograph was basically flush with the ceiling all the way through, and it was a bit boring. So we basically agreed with them to we wanted to level the whole ceiling and create that lovely architectural space over there. This is another one I want to talk about, the connection to the outdoors here. As you can see, that window around the sink area is another way of connecting with nature. And this was a very interesting project because we didn't design the island. That was bought by the client from a previous project they'd done. And we just floated all this off the back of the island for them because they needed, the architect wanted this whole thing to float. Now, that's a heck of a job to float some of that product in there. So we've had to build a steel frame system, but we made that through this centerpiece here around the window. We have a 6mm stainless steel frame running all the way around that niche to the outdoors, and it goes 1mm up to the edge of the glass. So you have this seamless, clear look all the way through, looking outside into the garden, which isn't yet landscaped. You can see a slightly better shot there of how we're mixing those materials up, and you can see the fantastic connection to the outdoors. Now everything is leading in through the materiality of the building. Everything in that building is either stainless steel, oak, or concrete. Those are the three material palettes we had for the whole thing. You can see that how that works beautifully through that whole space. Just a slightly closer shot showing you very simply the connection to the outdoors and how powerful that is. Little dog out there to keep us happy, and you can just see the stainless steel work gliding up to the window in a beautifully successful project for us. This is a slightly simpler and a slightly more cost-effective way of achieving the same, which is basically done in laminate type panels and finishes. And I can't move slide for some reason. Let's have a moment. No, here we go. Yeah, you can see the way the laminate is connecting to the outside. And again, in this particular picture back here, I'm trying to get back again. Okay, I'm having a problem just going back. Oh, here we go. So basically, outdoor, that wood you can't see because it's a bit washed out with the light, is where the client, who was a landscape gardener, was going to build a big water feature in the planting area. But by the time that we took these photos, that wasn't done, so that's been kind of fused out. Dealing with obstacles, which is a great one here, of trying to create space. This was a lovely project to do for some very lovely people, actually. We got on really well with them, and we changed the way they were thinking about their whole kitchen project, and we moved the kitchen within the space that the architect had originally designed to create this amazing feel. This project I really love, and it's sometimes when clients come to you, and this is kind of what happened here, is they came bouncing up to me when I was speaking at Grand Designs in London once, and said, "Oh, would we like to talk to you about doing our kitchen, but we're not sure if we can afford to." And that's a really interesting point, because unfortunately, good design has become synonymous with spending lots of money. And like I've said earlier, you can spend lots of money if you want to, but you don't have to. Even Somatic's kitchen ranges are very affordable at different points levels, but they are a mid to premium market, so obviously there's always something cheaper. But when we did this project for them, we redesigned again the whole space layout, which is what we call interior architecture, and we managed to shift the building around, get their commitment to it. And we went to see them a few months after we'd finished it. We were traveling to see some friends on Sunday, and I said, "Look, can we pass by in the morning, just drop in to see it?" Because it was just, I think, south of London, so it's a bit of a hike for us to get there during a normal working day. So it was a great opportunity to fuse both together. And what we ended up doing was arriving for breakfast, and she took us into the room, and she was jumping up and down on the spot with excitement because she so loved the space that we had created for her. She was so excited. And when they were using the entertainment space, and when they were using the dining area, I think I've got a second picture there or not. Yeah, just kind of put it back. That's the way you come into the building. So you can arrive at the building, you can grab a drink, and you can go over around to the island, and therefore you're drawing people into the space. And then on the left-hand side is the dining area. So it was a real delight to do that for us and have such a lovely outcome with clients so excited and passionate about what we've been able to create for them. This is a lovely project we've just done in Alresford. I only finished this a while ago, and this was fusing different materials. This is bespoke door finishes on here. We custom to match on the island. we based it on Somatic's SLX, and we used their SLX product, has beautiful kind of sloping handle profile, which you can just about see on the edge of the island. But also can have a light running around there, and then we did a custom door on the side there because the client wanted a particular matched feel. This is what I call a transitional kitchen, where you're fusing new elements and contemporary elements together with classic elements and creating a beautiful living style. Here's a little kind of dresser area, just done in a fusion style again, and we customized the table there, was what we created, which was made of Decton. Again, a great space to do that with a lovely Decton gloss materials at the back there, and we did a zinc extractor, lovely ladder to get access to those higher level units. I think this is going to a magazine actually in the next couple of months, I believe. So, light, space and laughter in summary as I'm kind of coming into land. This really is our model for design that we have here. There are all four aspects of what we're talking about. And starting right at the top, we were saying we're experiencing transcendence is the emotional and the aspects, emotional and spiritual aspects of design and how they impact the human soul, the human heart, and the human spirit. It's then we look at embracing community, which is how we then look at the interaction outside and how you draw people into your home and how you create that, and then the environmental links to bring in biophilia and materials from outside connecting to the outdoors and that sort of side. Enriching lifestyles is now talking about the practical functioning reality of how your space works and how your kitchen pulls together, the relational aspects of how you create these special places, moments, pause moments within your home where people are naturally and organically drawn to the heart of your home or the home of your heart for those special relationships and moments. And then the exhibiting excellence, which is about the materiality and budget, what you want to spend to be able to do that. But my recommendation is to get the best you can afford, and the professionalism of delivering the whole style and the whole thing. So light, space and laughter then is less about products, but they do need to be excellent. Designing with a transcendent vision in mind, rather than becoming too focused too early on products. There is absolutely a stage to be focused on the products, but if you go there too early, you can end up with a design that doesn't work for you or doesn't feel like how you're expecting it to feel or how you're expecting it to think. This whole thing of facilitating human connection, touching on this thing that I mentioned about impacting relationships, is a really, really key part of creating spaces, particularly as we've seen over the last couple of years, how important it is to be in our homes and to enjoy our family environments. Finding a designer where your values align and we connect to each other is really, really key. You know, we're great people here at the Myers Touch, but not everybody loves us, and that's okay. There is people out there do it, and there's other great designers around as well in the UK, and you know, find someone who it is that you can work with. We've got four designers here at the Myers Touch. Sophie and Jay are my two senior designers, and myself and Helena. We work, well, if you want to work with a director, bigger design fee, but we're worth it. But if we're not right for you, that's fine. So ultimately, to sum up the whole thing is that it's about great design. Getting the design right gives you this whole sense of great feelings, and most importantly, to have fun in the process. So I want to thank you for listening and really appreciate your time joining us here. It's been a bit mad, as you can see, because we've been having to negotiate people coming around us, which has been fun. Obviously, at times there's been quite a lot of background noise. But I really like to thank Somatic US. I've had a great time with the team here. The US country manager they've looked after us really well. And I say they've hosted us fantastically. So we're absolutely delighted to have enjoyed our time with them. So thank you very much for joining us. Our next design talk, if you're signed up for this one, you'll be notified of our next design talk. We do one a month. We do on a Friday, we do an Ask the Expert, where you're welcome to dial in and have a conversation with one of our designers for free of charge, just to bounce off thoughts and ideas, or maybe just test us out. We do a lot more of these design talks, as I said, and they're recorded and placed onto the web on our YouTube channel. So please go through and have a look at that. There's other ones that we've done, things like creating kitchens in small spaces and large spaces, both challenging, and there's different challenges for them. 5 things your kitchen should enjoy, lots of other little kind of talks that we've done over the last couple of years or so that are really able to help you develop, explore, and grow in designing a great space for yourself. So thank you for your time, and wish you all the very best, and hope we can help you. And if we can, do give us a call or drop us a line on the website. Thank you very much for your time. Good night.